The biggest football stories, of course. Well, one, the Colts, in case you missed it, have given Jonathan Taylor now until Tuesday to find a suitable trade after authorizing their star running back earlier this week to engage with other teams in search of a trade partner. 6 teams have inquired about Taylor's availability, and 2 of them have engaged the Colts with offers, including the Miami Dolphins. That source telling ESPN on Wednesday. And the other big story, of course, the 49ers, in case you missed this, they're going with Sam Darnold after much offseason speculation that he was having a great camp. Sam Darnold is their number 2 behind Brock Purdy. That per Kyle Shanahan yesterday. The team will explore all options with Trey Lance, the number 3 pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, who, as you recall, the Niners sent the kitchen for Trey Lance, specifically 3 first-round picks, along with a 2022 third-rounder that turned into, by the way, to the Dolphins, that turned into Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Bradley Chubb. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Can't wait to see what team is able to grab Trey Lance for a 6th-round pick or whatever it ends up being.
Well, they have 3 options, right? They keep him as their third stringer. They trade him, which is less of a cap hit than cutting him, which is a massive cap hit. If only we had someone we could talk about all of this with in studio. What do you know we do? Dr. Eric Eager from Sumer Sports joins us, VP at Sumer Sports, host of the Sumer Sports Show, in studio for the first time. You can follow him on Twitter at Eric Eager _. Don't forget the underscore. Was there an Eric Eager without the underscore?
There is, actually. There's like a politician in Texas with the same name as me.
Really?
Yeah. It's like a state senator, or House of Representatives or something. So, yeah, we had to differentiate ourselves.
Could you imagine if, like, back in the day, he was trying to work at PFF also. He's like, God, this Eric Eager.
Yeah.
It's got my PFF handle as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting time moving from the PFF underscore because every permutation of Eric Eager without the underscore was taken, so we had to go with that.
We're happy you're here. Thanks for making the trip down. You're staying on the Strip, I would imagine.
Circa, actually.
Oh, at Circa.
Yeah,
nice.
so we're doing that sign up weekend.
Oh, sweet.
That's right. Yep.
What about the 2 stories? By the way, have you met Eric in person, Kelly, ever? This is the first time for you, too?
No, I've been bugging him for 5 years. He's been great coming on primetime action, green zone, a numbers game. At least I don't believe, he probably wouldn't say it in person, but I don't believe for a second that at least once a month he sees his phone ring and sees my name, and he's like, God, this guy.
Bidlin. What about those 2 stories that we just talked about? First of all, let's talk about the Jonathan Taylor one. Where would he end up, in your opinion, that would have the most impact?
Yeah, the biggest impact. It's hard to look at it and say it would have a positive impact much of anywhere other than maybe Chicago. Chicago's got the cap space. Chicago's got the picks. Hopefully that doesn't mean that they would actually use something like a first rounder, which I know Irsay was going after there. Buffalo is always linked to these top end running backs, but they never end up going for them. I think that they're sharper than that.
Is that what it is? They're sharper than that.
Yeah, I think Buffalo is very intelligent. It's a funny story. Actually, when I was a professor, I taught a stats class out of a textbook that was written by the guy who runs the analytics at Buffalo now. So it's kind of like a cool little connection there. So I can whenever they make a move, I'm always like, I can see where his name's Dennis. I can see what Dennis is his impact here, which is really cool. And
sharper than that, let me just define, meaning that the value from one running back to the next is not nearly as wide of a gap as the market makes it.
Right, and a lot of people are looking at Buffalo and saying like, look, and we talked about Buffalo last week. They look at Buffalo and they say, God, if they can only get a running game. And then they're like, the solution is a running back, a lot of people say. And, of course, that's actually not true. It's like scheme and then the 5 offensive linemen and then it's game script, right? So a lot of times teams have bad running games because they're behind more. In Buffalo last year, that wasn't necessarily the case, but it was just like their running game has been kind of a little less than optimal in the last few years. And everybody said, they're going to go after Breece Hall, if you remember that last year. They're going to go after, Dalvin Cook to go with his brother James Cook and so forth. And really all that they've done is trade for Naheem Hines. They've drafted James Cook. They got Damian Harris this year. I think that's going to be enough for them. He would obviously positively benefit them, but they're a team that's kind of pushed their chips into the middle, and taking away another draft pick, adding another salary would be tough for them.
And for those who missed you last week, you love Buffalo.
I like Buffalo. I think I think that relative to market numbers, they're a little bit underrated. I think that when you look at Josh Allen, it's funny. You always look back and you think, like, how much do we overreact to one game samples? And there's like that, you can test it. It's like 1-game samples basically don't have an influence over the outcome of any one game, right? So you look at the being a 6-point favorite against Cincinnati in week was it 20 of the NFL season. They get beat soundly, and we all say, well, that's the end for Buffalo. And in reality, it's like one draw of a random of a roulette wheel over here, and it's like. I think that everybody's over-indexed on Cincinnati. Obviously, Kansas City won the Super Bowl. They deserve a lot of respect. And some of the teams in the NFC, but I think Buffalo is the underrated elite team.
All right. By the way, Buffalo plus 450 to win the AFC. Only the Chiefs are shorter. Bengals at plus 550. Everybody else double digits. What about what we just talked about, that Miami is the one team identified that is engaged with the Colts? Now, that's not a Josh Allen situation. That's a Tua situation. That would seem to me to matter there, wouldn't it?
Well, and it looks like Devin Achane was injured in this last week, and I have to go back and look at how serious that was. But they missed out on Dalvin Cook. They have Mostert, Jeff Wilson, 2 guys from the Niners regime coming over, and then Achane was taken in the draft and probably screwed up their opportunity to get Dalvin Cook after the post June 1. So they are kind of looking for a veteran running back, and he could obviously do well. I think the issue with Miami is, like, without Teron Armstead, without Jalen Ramsey. I feel like they think that they have to go all in a little bit more, because when you look at this division, other than Buffalo, every team in this division is do or die, I think, right? If those teams don't make the playoffs, they're stuck. And so when you think about, this is how the good GMs like Howie Roseman and all them, they make a lot of value, because they know they're going to have a 5-year window. They can accumulate picks, and they look at, GMs like the one like Greer in Miami, and they say, this guy doesn't give a crap about 2 years from now, because if he has a job by then, it's gravy, right? So then that's kind of how you can get these mismatches. And I think with Indianapolis, with Taylor, I think that they're going to want to accumulate picks, because that roster's atrophied a little bit, and maybe they can take advantage of Miami.
Yeah, I would imagine it would move the betting market a bit as well. Quarterbacks are obviously the one that we know matter the most. But I would imagine some people, enough people out there will be like, oh, my God, Jonathan Taylor, if he ends up with Miami, that would induce a lot of bets from a lot of people.
Yeah, I'd have to do the study on this, but I think obviously a quarterback who's kind of in that second, third tier, other players might move the betting line. If Jonathan Taylor goes to Kansas City, like, nothing's changing, right? Because nothing matters other than Mahomes.
Jonathan Taylor to the Dolphins wouldn't trigger a bet from me, but I'm saying I think there's a lot of people out there.
I think it would change the odds just slightly, because the thing about running is, like, the benefit of running is enhanced when you're a better team, and the Miami Dolphins could end up being a better team this year, even with those injuries that I talked about.
This has less to do with betting, but let's just keep it on the Dolphins. The Dolphins were the ones who got the haul from the Niners in the Trey Lance deal, and again turned it into Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Bradley Chubb. I mean, that's epic. Would they want Trey Lance? Could you imagine that if they're like, oh, by the way, now we'll take Trey Lance?
It would be an all-time. It would be an all-timer, wouldn't it? I mean, it was like Dallas, when Dallas traded Herschel Walker to the Vikings for like 7 draft picks and 5 players, and then Herschel ended up going back as a free agent like 4 or 5 years later.
That's right.
And it's just like, you're like, oh, this is like double, right? I feel like for Miami, it would be turning the screws to the Niners. Now, I will say this: like, a lot of people are giving Shanahan and Lynch a lot of flack for this, and granted, the one decision in a vacuum looks terrible. They still win.
Yes.
And I think, when you think about, oh, they got lucky with Brock Purdy. Well, you have to select a quarterback late to get lucky on him. So there's a little bit of process there. I'm back and forth on the Niners. I think that they do a lot of things really smart. I think then they take a kicker in round 3 and trade up for him. So that's kind of where I get. But I do think people kind of need to back off the Niners a little bit, because what they've shown is like an ability. What they've shown is that none of these decisions should be game breakers for teams. None of them, right? The Jets. So the cool stat I looked up this week was Trey Lance and Zach Wilson are the first 2 top 10 quarterbacks to be backups for the team that drafted them in year 3 since Matt Leinart in 2006.
Wow!
So they're like the first guys who, by year 3, couldn't beat out somebody. And it was Leinart couldn't beat out Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer. And then now these 2 guys are, assuming Lance stays, they're backups on their own team in year 3. That's hasn't happened in forever.
Given what happened to the Niners with injuries last year, obviously they had to go to a 4th quarterback, and even that fell by the wayside due to injury in the playoff game with Josh Johnson. Do you think Kyle Shanahan is sincere when he's like, I'd actually like him to stick around as the 3rd string quarterback?
I think so. And there were teams that pushed really heavily for that third quarterback rule. So one thing, if you are trying to handicap who's going to make these teams, pre-CBA in 2011, there was a rule where you could dress a third quarterback. He counted as inactive, and he only came in the game in emergencies like the one you saw in that game. That rule is back this year. So you might see more third quarterbacks stay on teams, and you may see a different draft strategy as a result.
Brandon Allen also on the Niners depth chart as well. Same agent for Darnold and Trey Lance. You wonder how much he was involved in. Make a decision, Niners. I want to do something with one of these guys. I buried the headline. You are in town for what, sir?
Yeah, the Circa sign-up, right? The millions and then the Survivor. A few of us had, my podcast, The Sumer Sports Show, with myself and Thomas Dimitroff were sponsored by Circa Sports. So it's part of all that thing.
That's nice. And you're staying at Circa. The rooms are fabulous?
Amazing, yeah. I would recommend.
I've never stayed in a Circa room. Have you?
No, I haven't stayed. I haven't been in one either because we've even done.
I haven't been in one either. Yeah.
We've done a couple things for the network out of some of the rooms for what was like the draft or something. I think we had a set up there.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, so
March Madness once.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I haven't been in a room either. So yeah, that's good to hear.
I've got 5 NFL bets so far for the season. I want to know from you what you hate, what you like. Like what's the one you like the most? What's the one you like the least? Here are the 5 bets I've made so far. 2 alternate season win totals. The Giants alt low, which I talked about many times earlier this summer. Win total under 6.5 at plus 185. I took the Commodores alternate high over 7.5 at plus 190. Those are sort of a tandem thing in some respect, but not exactly. But there is some relationship between them. Last team to record their first win, I made this bet yesterday at Circa. The Carolina Panthers at 15-1. This is sort of, how can I put this? This was the first NFL draft that I lost on. And I was convinced that C.J. Stroud was going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. I got him at plus money. I had great, the whole CLV thing. Anyway, it ends up being Bryce Young, as we know. And I still maintain my conviction that I don't think at his size he's going to be all that great. So I got them as the last team to record the first win. Obviously, that's schedule-based as well. Matt LaFleur, Coach of the Year. I think if he coaches Jordan Love up and they have a good season, he looks great. And then first NFL head coach fired almost at the exact same 15-1 numbers, these last 3. Matt Eberflus of the Chicago Bears. I see a path where if things go bad early for the Bears, he would be the guy to go out first. What do you like best? What do you like least?
Oh, I really like 3 of those bets a lot.
Thank you.
And I think that I actually don't think that you're wrong about the Panthers as far as I don't necessarily think that there was a 100% consensus about that draft pick. And so I like the Panthers to win that division at 4-1 or so, depending upon where the price is. Just because I can't get behind Derek Carr winning a division. I can't get I can't get behind Desmond Ridder.
To see it.
I like Desmond Ridder. I was watching Falcons camp with Thomas, my boss, and if Desmond Ridder was sitting between us, you would have a who's the football player?
Really?
He's small. Right, and similar, we all talk about Bryce Young being tiny.
I was going to say, you were talking about Desmond Ridder.
Desmond Ridder was not impressive physically. And so I'm just not in on the Falcons. And I think the party's over for Tampa Bay, right? So by process of elimination, I think Carolina with Reich, Ejiro Evero is the guy. No one remembers that Denver's defense was amazing last year because Russ was so terrible, but he was good. So I like the Panthers more maybe than you do. The Packers bet phenomenal, right? Because there's so many markers in that head coach, in the coach of the year market, because every coach of the year except for John Harbaugh has had kind of what I would consider a mid-tier quarterback. So Baker, Goff, last year's Daniel Jones. You look at kind of the markers. It's a team that goes over. It's a team that wins 10 or 11 games. It's never one, with exceptions like Harbaugh. It's always a team that does 10 or 11 games. If Andy Reid wins 14, everybody's going to be like, oh, it's X, Y, and Z. But when a team barely scrapes over that 10 or 11 wins with a mid-tier quarterback, that guy's going to win Coach of the Year. I like LaFleur there. The Eberflus one is interesting for sure. I just don't think they bail after 1 year, but 15-1, it's pretty solid. And then I like those 2. I do think the Giants and Commanders in odds should be flipped in that division. Our win totals at sumersports.com, if you go look at our simulated win totals and everything on our website, we have the Commanders winning more games than the Giants. I would like it. Basically I would bet into basically Commanders plus 1 win in the marketplace head to head with the Giants.
I hope the incomparable Terry McLaurin's incomparable toe is okay after the other night. Kelly, what did you hate the most of those 5? I just want to know. I want Kelly to blast one of these.
Your Panthers one. Okay. We talked about it before you left. We talked about it last week.
You hate that one the most?
Yeah. I kind of err on the side of the Panthers in that division, just like Eric said. We talked about that on Friday before you left.
That division does have a throw all the teams up in the air quality too.
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can, just like Eric said, I cannot get behind this Saints team at all. Like, it is. They might win the dang thing just because all other 3 teams suck that
Home
bad.
playoff game, baby.
But, I mean, we all know. I mean, you and I know. If they were doing things right, you wouldn't have brought in Derek Carr, Taysom Hill under center, 2 cheek sneak that took his push, just push forward all the way until they outlaw that rule. But they're not going to do it. They're going to bring in Derek Carr. And I can't wait for a Jameis Winston, Derek Carr quarterback.
I just want to thank you for going tuchus there and not tush push. Thank you so much.
There you go.
Appreciate it.
You got to look out for the brand.
Yeah. It's all about the brand. All right, we want to get to your favorite thing. We'll rifle through divisions here momentarily. But last thing, in case people missed it, what was your most, when I ask you, your most surprising or your most off-conventional football take of the year was what again?
It is, to me, I think it's AFC North might, the AFC North to me, and maybe this isn't off kilter, but everybody looks at the AFC West or the NFC East, and I think the AFC North could have 4 playoff teams.
AFC North could have 4 playoff teams. There's got to be a prop for that somewhere.
Woo, yeah, there is.
You want to do the same exercise with Kelly's bets here real quick? What do you like best? What do you like?
Kelly's bet more here.
Kelly's all over the place.
Yeah, I got a few more.
All right, Jags to win the AFC South.
Favorite bet of the year.
He's got multiple.
Where did you get minus 105?
Oh, that is
Kelly?
Off. That should be 150. Yeah, that is 150.
I was going to say
that is off.
Kelly's got his own book.
That is the best bet. And
105. It's a great bet.
And he's got multiple Steelers unders, multiple Patriots unders, and then Raiders and Titans for fewest wins at big prices, 15 and 21 to 1 respectively.
I like the Titans bet the most. Vrabel. It's funny. You look at the AFC. There's like. I did my power rankings on Twitter, kind of tongue in cheek, but there's like 4 teams that have kind of not a ton going for them other than a great coach. Denver, Pittsburgh, New England. It's and I think that with the Titans, it's Vrabel. It's like I don't necessarily know if I can get to the mechanism of why he's good. And in 2021 they got the 1 seed in the AFC. They played like the most active players of all time in that league because of COVID and injuries and stuff. And last year they were sort of trending in the same direction, and it like fell off the table. And I just don't know if they had an answer for that. I don't know if they have an answer now.
Yeah, that was an interesting sentence, interesting phrase. You can't quite get to the mechanism of why Vrabel is so good. I tell the story when I used to be with Dr. Bob. He had an NFL guy at one point. Nice, great guy. His model was fine, but every time he had a Patriots game, he would like be betting against the Patriots, right? And Bill Belichick would just be this thing that he couldn't quite quantify. Finally, we're like, you can't do this anymore. Like you can't keep betting against the Patriots. And this is like Belichick prime light with Vrabel, right?
Well, and that's where I get to like my least favorite was the Steelers stuff. Like Mike Tomlin is phenomenal.
Hey, do you know this stat about Mike Tomlin? Are you aware?
Yeah, I'm aware. But with Tomlin, I don't see like Tomlin. We do this. We have this model at Sumer called like basically how much win probability do you add on in-game decisions. So 4th downs, timeout avoidance, delay of game avoidance, all that stuff. And Tomlin consistently ranks among the league's worst. Like
really?
he doesn't go for 4th downs. He doesn't
year after year, delay of game avoidance.
I'm going to add to this model this year how many times teams fair catch kickoffs, because the dumb teams are going to take the kickoff out to the 19 and the smart teams are going to fair catch and take it at the 25.
Sure.
Thank you very much. And I know the Steelers are going to try to own the nerds and run every kickoff back to the 18-yard line.
Own the nerds.
And it's like and yet they're going to win. They're going to go 9-7-1. Like we just know this, right? So I get a little worried about that wager, but it makes sense. When I look at the Steelers fundamentally, that roster isn't amazing, and the quarterback I think had a good stretch. Their offense last year in the last, I think from week 10 on, was 5th in EPA per play. So or 4th, I can't remember, the top 5. And when I was doing my numbers for the season, I'm like, why are the Steelers offense popping up? And it's like the second half of the year they were very efficient. And so that one, I'm higher on the Steelers than I think maybe Kelly is.
Well, and Eric, to your point, this is more of I'm so high on Bengals, Ravens, Browns that it's almost got to be an odd man out situation. Yeah. So that's what when the nine I had to bet under, and we haven't really had a chance to talk about this a whole lot. I don't know how many alt win totals I'm in love with. These are more just kind of sprinkles to the bigger main win total bet that I have on the Patriots and the Steelers.
I can't wait for the Tomlin post-game presser towards the end of the year. Was like, once, with that steely gaze that he has. Once again, I've owned the nerds. Eric Eager.
Well, they're going to run one kickoff back for a touchdown and prove us all wrong. And
of course.
Every other kick's going to go.
I want to start AFC East or NFC East here, Kelly?
We'll start AFC East.
AFC East.
We'll start with that.
We'll put the grid up here. This is, we have to win the division, obviously conference and Super Bowl too, but mainly we have win totals and the division odds on the left side of the screen. Is there Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots a best bet in any of these categories for any of these teams?
Yeah, I think championship, Super Bowl odds, if we can say it, 9-1 for Buffalo to me are okay. I would, plus 120 to win the division for Buffalo is plus EV in my opinion.
Plus 120 Buffalo to win the AFC East. These are numbers quoted at DraftKings. AFC North, is that where we're going next? AFC North, the division that you just talked about, is you think there might be 4 teams going to the postseason, and what do you like here?
Yeah, when I look at this one, to me it's got to be, the almost 4-1 plus 380 for the Browns to win the division. I think that's a popular one, and I think to me it's more of an intangible thing. I'm just fading the Ravens a little bit, but I think the Browns at plus 380. To win that division is the best bet.
Brownies at plus 380 to win the division. That made a lot of Browns up.
1989, the last time they won the division. And it was the AFC Central.
Was that a Kosar year?
Kosar, yeah. Kosar and Bud Carson was the coach. 2 years before Bill Belichick was the coach.
Bud Carson.
Yeah.
Bernie Kosar. Has there ever been a less athletic quarterback than that dude?
He had a hunched back.
Yeah.
it was a rough look.
I think that answers the question. AFC South, the Jags. At the top, of course.
It's Colts 6-1 for me. There is a path for the Colts being good. Anthony Richardson, they have one of the. I think that if I look at my numbers at SumerSports.com, by the way, if you want to look at them, they have, I think, a top 5 easiest schedule in football. Both Colts and Texans. I would not be surprised if you saw them win 9 or 10 games.
Wow, that's a bold one right there, Kelly. If you can get Kelly's number on the Jags, different story. Different story entirely. Yes. AFC West, where the Chiefs reign supreme. Chargers. Kelly, by the way, we left out one of Kelly's bets. Kelly, you did make a Chargers bet?
I made a Chargers bet yesterday for them to make the playoffs, just minus 115.
He's going to be that guy this year.
I'm going to be that guy this year. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid this year.
I was that guy last year.
I've stayed away the past 2 years. I'm the guy drinking the Kool-Aid this year.
They got to the playoffs last year. They just couldn't hold a 27-point lead. What do you like here?
I think minus 165 is actually short for Kansas City, and that's weird considering last year it was kind of flipped. It was like plus 140 to plus 160 or so. I just think that I think that they have just such a path with the Broncos, Chargers, and Raiders kind of beating each other up. Be that as it may, I do think this is off the board. Broncos 2-1 to make the playoffs ish. In the marketplace, to me, is a solid play on a good head coach. Yeah.
So a good head coach, but where do you stand on Russell Wilson? That last year was anomalous, or that? No,
I think he's
him.
bad, but I think but we had 2 years ago we had a 9-8 Saints team quarterbacked by Simeon, Winston, Book, and Hill. And that was Peyton's last year. I think he can do something, and that defense is similar to as good as how the Saints defenses were when he was taking that team to the playoffs repeatedly.
All right, to the NFC, which of course was the better conference when we were kids, but not even close now. The NFC East, where the Eagles are at the top, and they, of course, are the short shot to get back to the Super Bowl. What do you like here in the NFC East?
Commanders over 6.5.
Let's go, baby. You're a Sam Howell guy?
I talked about in the first segment, basically, like, don't overreact to, like, the most immediate thing that happened to you. Howell is, like, the classic example of, like, he was the betting favorite to go first overall going into the 2021 season.
Yeah.
Struggles, but he had 1,100 yards rushing if you took away sacks, even in that down year for UNC. Like, I think he'll be fine. That offensive line did a good job of protecting the other night.
Well, yeah, against the Ravens backups, but yes.
But they did the Ravens did a lot of stunts and a lot of blitzes and everything. I think Eric Bieniemy is a plus EV kind of OC for them.
The commodes will go as far as that offensive line takes them, for sure.
Yep.
NFC North, a lot of different opinions on this division this year.
Everything Packers.
7.5,
4-1. Yesterday when I was recording a show for the Hammer, that number went from plus 403 to like plus 370, which is just like 2%. But like while we were doing the 10-minute segment or whatever, like I think that the Packers are kind of the Lions of this year. And like I apologize to everybody for how like bad the numbers are for the Lions now. If you want to bet Detroit, I think there's no more a bigger sucker play than the Lions now after we restored the heck out of the roar last year.
Yes, we did.
And now there's no value left in backing them anymore. But I think the Packers are turning into that team this year where a lot of people are saying if Jordan Love just colors between the lines, this team's going to be pretty good.
I love that. You said that last week. I love that analogy. If he just colors between the lines. How's Pizzola doing, by the way? Is he calmed down after Bet Bash? Is he okay? He got a little riled up.
He was on one, yeah.
Oh, he got riled up.
Yeah.
Definitely riled up. NFC South, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Bucks. Somebody's got to win. Something's got to give.
Yeah, Panthers 4-1 to me is the bet I like there to win the division.
And then finally, the NFC West, where again, it's going to be Sam Darnold as Brock Purdy's backup with the Niners.
Yeah, I think that this. My numbers don't support this. Is just me, like kind of qualitatively, that this is a 2-team race after September, and the Niners. Everybody talks about the Niners and how Shanahan can do it with any quarterback. That's actually not true. Like when C.J. Beathard or Nick Mullins had to play, they were bad. This team since 2015 has either won enough games to go to the NFC title game or lost 10 games. And, if Purdy / Darnold, if that thing goes pear-shaped, like the Seahawks kind of have the division. And at 2-1, I think it's a fairly solid bet.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.